Just one of the reasons Far Cry is such a beloved franchise is that it's unafraid to take risks and rib itself. Lost on Mars quintessentially represents that line of thinking, serving as a real continuation of the quirkiness that Ubisoft uncovered in Blood Dragon. And while Hours of Darkness was a decent enough opening DLC for the Far Cry 5 Season Pass, Lost on Mars is unquestionably the main event. Nick Rye's sort of best buddy Hurk is in trouble, and not the usual kind of trouble where he's down one too many moonshines at the local tavern and started a fight with a boxer. No. Somehow he's managed to get stuck on Mars. And not only has Hurk gone intergalactic, he's lost all of his body parts and is helping an all-powerful AI called Anne try to save the world from spider crabs. Because who wouldn't want this guy being humanity's last hope? As Nick, you must travel the surface of the planet, activating broken down terminals using energy cores which, in turn, help to grow Anne's influence. The arachnid force, millions of years in the making, have been gradually breaking down her network, so you must help her rebuild her robot army to fight back the spider crabs and save the day. Anne will assist you by supplying teleporters to fast travel around Mars and 3D printers to create weapons and helpful items, all in exchange for the planetary currency Hemaluim, or as it's affectionately known, Space Jizz. This is harvested from green barrels, spider crab corpses, and broken down from energy cores once you have enough of them. Now, unlike Hours of Darkness, which often treads familiar ground, Lost on Mars feels completely separate from Far Cry 5 in many ways. For starters, there's a ton of new weapons, including the Blaster of Disaster sniper rifle, the Hellfire pulse rifle, and the infamous Power Glove, which lets you punch spider crabs into hyperspace. You'll also have the option to get suit upgrades and helpful power-ups like crab momes, which can be thrown at spider crabs, covering them in a stench which attracts little bitty spider crab pests to distract them. There's also a Queen's Heart, which can be pulled from the biggest of the arachnids, and it actually makes the arachnids fight one another. But the best piece of kit has to be the space jets. The zero gravity impulse has you leaping high up into the sky to grab onto seemingly out of reach platforms, but you can also soar over the sands using space wings. I got real Batman Arkham City / Just Cause vibes out of this every time. It was wonderful. Now, there are particular platforming sections in Lost on Mars that are tailor-made for the space jets, though they can be a tad frustrating as you only have a limited pool of energy to draw from. And once that drains, you'll plummet back down to the surface whether you want to or not. Timing is everything. Eventually, you'll pick up an upgrade that lets you hover above ground for a period of time, while also reducing your fall damage by breaking up into stages so you don't die on impact. But this also relies on the energy bar, so conservation really does need to be taken into consideration. The great part of the space jets is that it also affects your combat strategy, because the final major difference between Lost on Mars and Far Cry 5 as a whole is that you can't walk on the sand. Well, you can, but every time you do, a spider crab will feel the tremors and surface to attack you. As such, it's always safest to stand on random crates, platforms, or in the case of space jets, gain some height and shoot from above. I mean, sure, the spider crabs can fight back by spitting at you, but this content ensures you're rarely ever stood still during battles. And sometimes that does let the DLC down just a little bit. See, while you want to be up all night to get crabby, it reaches a point in Lost on Mars where the floor may as well be lava. You'll feel like you're on a permanent pogo stick, moving from place to place because the longer you stay on the ground, the more enemies you'll have to fight. And with the draining energy that I've already mentioned, more often than not, you're relying on a combination of skill, luck, and patience to get the job done, seemingly every single time. That's because the difficulty curve gets really rough really quickly. And it doesn't help that you have to keep switching your weapons out time after time because the ammo depletes almost faster than you can fire it, and you can't reload. Everything has to recharge, and to make matters worse, you only have a limited amount of slots to use, which means you can only use half your guns at any one time, and that doesn't really help in the clutch situations when you're running low. It also doesn't help as the fights are often more than a little bit unfair. I mean, yes, Brobot Hurk is your companion throughout and will pepper enemies with some shots, but you constantly have to guide him manually, and then he goes down very quickly and easily anyway, so actually turns out to be fairly useless, which narratively kind of actually does make a bit of sense. Your health is also on a very low recharge rate, and you'll often go through your supply of space bandages in one fight, and then you're desperately trying to pick up scraps until you reach the next 3D printer point to make more, which feeds into my next point. Another issue with Lost on Mars is you're quite often priced out from buying the big weapons because you're not earning enough space jizz, or you're having to spend it on smaller items to stay alive. Part of the problem is that the spider crabs regularly die on the sand, and trying to loot them often brings up more arachnids into the fight. If you're half dead already, that's not an advisable tactic, and there's just not enough barrels to sustain the amount needed to beef up your arsenal until you unlock all the terminals to withdraw from the energy cores. But I do like Lost on Mars. It's ambitious, it's creative, and generally it's a lot of fun. The mission structure does become a bit tedious between trying to find Hurk's body parts and activating the terminals, but the witty dialogue throughout makes it easy to look past. The two protagonists are complete ducks out of water, and it suits the offhand, off-the-wall humour that really made Blood Dragon such a cult hit. You can tell that the shackles have come off for this DLC, where the restraints were in place for Hours of Darkness. And while the overall plot and ending is a little weak, this is a neat DLC while it lasts. There's about 5 hours of content here, and it's such a refreshing change of pace, it may as well be a completely different game in how it plays. It's obvious where the development time has gone on these two DLCs. Lost on Mars is a substantial improvement over Hours of Darkness in almost every conceivable way. No, it's not Blood Dragon brilliant, and it does have its flaws and weaknesses, but I certainly enjoyed my time in space more than I didn't. For now at least, it helps scratch that Blood Dragon sequel itch. So to summarise, on the pro side, the space jets and wings are exhilarating and so much fun. It really is a refreshing change of pace. It almost feels like a completely different game in some respects, and there's a lot of witty dialogue and humour that did make me laugh more than a few times. On the cons, the difficulty curve gets rough, and weapons recharge not reload, which really does become quite frustrating very early on. Bigger weapons are difficult to obtain as you don't really earn enough space jizz to collect them unless until you've completed your objectives, and when you've done that then it's almost a bit too late. The Brobot companion can be more trouble than he's worth as you're constantly having to manually guide him, and the ending and the overall plot is kinda weak. But we've chosen to give Far Cry 5 Lost on Mars DLC a 7.5 out of 10. We tested this on an Xbox One. So the Far Cry 5 Season Pass is shaping up. If you've not already seen it, we've got an Hours of Darkness review on the channel already, and we will be reviewing Dead Living Zombies when it releases this August. After that, we will do a complete Season Pass review, which will also include the Far Cry 3 Classic Edition, to do an overall analysis and tell you whether or not the Far Cry 5 Season Pass is worth it. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and also press that little bell button at the bottom there to get a notification whenever Expansive uploads a new video to the channel. If you've been playing Lost on Mars, let us know what you think in the comment section, or if you played Hours of Darkness and you're interested, or if you've yet to get any of the Far Cry 5 DLC and you want to know whether it's worth it, we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to talk you through it. Thanks for watching, we'll see you for the next one.